we are going to begin the business meeting portion. We have to do this every year in November, and so here we are. John Butler, chairman of the board, will be hosting this meeting.
Thank you. Will that work? Look at that. That's amazing. Thank you. We get to do a business meeting once a year, and it sounds dull, but it's going to be fun. You're going to get a lot out of this meeting, I promise you, and I'm looking forward to what we're going to be sharing today, and I appreciate Mr. Secretary Norm Zoller, do we have a quorum? Thank you, sir. We are going to be voting shortly here, so I want to make sure we're good to go. So we'll quickly do election of new directors for the class of 2025, starting today, actually. And then I want to provide some feedback, some initial comments, some highlights of our, I have surveyed, it's actually the just table discussions, which we learned a lot of great information from. And then Kurt Mueller is going to do a foundations update, very important information for us to know about. And then Skip, and then we will wrap it up. So let's kick it off with Dan Holtz. You can applaud. You can applaud. Yay, Dan.
Okay. Bingo. Okay, this is the fun part of the meeting. Our nominating committee this year was myself, John Butler, Skip Bell, Art Katz, and Kerry King. Basically, the board is composed right now of 3 classes. The one that expires this year is 2022. You can see the names of the folks who are in that class. 2023 next year, and the year after that, 2024. So these are the folks who are departing. Plus, and I want to give a shout out to David Parker. David has been our treasurer for about the last, how long, David? 5 years? Yeah. And David has decided to hang it up, and so he will be leaving us come 1 January, and I want to thank him for his service and wish him all the best. He's in the back of the room if you want to. So the nominating committee has proposed the following 5 people to be members of the class of 2025. Kerry King, Bob Hopkins. Is Kerry here? He's not. He's not. Okay. Bob, are you here? Back in the back. Stand up. Stand up so people can see you, please. Okay. Jeff Hoffman. I know I've seen him. There he is. Rick Leake. Okay. Well, God bless him. And Rich, I know I'm going to bug this up. Rich Moshigan. Or as he said, if I call him Michigan, he'll answer to it. So those are your 5 nominees. And at this time, Mr. Chairman, that's our report. It's one more. Well, let's do the vote. So my report, our report is all we need to do this, since it's a committee report. Is there a second? Okay, we got a second. Okay. Any discussion? Any additional nominations from the floor? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Yes, Max? Okay, shoot. Oh, call for the question. Yeah, I love that. It's confusing every time somebody throws that out there. Okay, we've had a vote. It's definitely in the affirmative. These are your new board members. And one last thing. When the board meets right after this meeting, the board will be electing officers. And these are the folks that the nominating committee has proposed to the board for the various positions that you see listed up there. So most of them are returnees. except for the replacement for David Parker. And Bruce Avery, where are you? Stand up. Bruce is going to be our new treasurer, and welcome to the new position.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. You'll be our new treasurer only if the board, you know, got to say. All right, guys. So I want to, there we go. Remind you that I want to go through most of these pretty quickly because most of these you've seen before. The Strategic Planning Committee has been meeting several times over the last several months. You can see who's on the committee. Remember that the survey that we did was, the intent of the survey was to really drill down to find out what are the specific things we needed to explore in more detail. And that's what the table discussions were for at our last meeting last month. And then there was an analysis done, has been multiple times for the survey, and then an analysis done of the discussion, table discussions. And so today is this is the same slide you saw before with different highlights, initial feedback to the members at this meeting. And then we intend to, based on the number of suggestions, there were over 200 recommendations. Some of them were similar, of course, but there were some overlapping ones and there were some conflicting ones. So it's based on that, the team is going to meet again and perhaps more than once more time, and then we'll make some decisions, make some recommendations to the board and then the membership. So real quickly, the survey, we had 167 responses, which represents 66% of our active members. Just so you know who were responding, 61% of those have been members for more than 10 years or more, actually more than 10 years. 23% have attended at least 10 of the previous 12 meetings at that time. 28% are missing only because of COVID issues, and only 3% actually have participated via Zoom. We have 11 participants today on our Zoom call. Just table discussion facilitators, most of whom are here, most of whom were either on the board or coming onto the board or something. You can see who they were, and some of those were steering team members. So there were 17, I believe 17 table discussion leaders, and we ended up with 15 tables of 6, where 90 people were here and were actively engaged. The questions, the discussion topics, again, were based on the feedback we got from the survey, and were narrowed down to 4 topics, and there are the 4 topics, and so you'll see in a second what that looks like. First thing I want to say is the steering team, we were in violent agreement that we wanted to commend this group on the incredible participation that you all made that were here. It was a remarkable success from the standpoint that when we looked around the room and walked around, Tim Boone, who's here, acted as a consultant. Where are you, Tim? Raise your hand. Tim is a consultant. He's a great guy. He's a member of the organization. He really played a big part as a consultant in our organization in this process. The two of us kind of walked around and skipped too, and just kind of wanted to see how it was going. And people were intensely engaged in the process, and I really appreciated that, and I think it was very meaningful. Again, nearly 200 recommendations recorded. Some have been or will be immediately tried because they're not that difficult to do. We'll see how they work. We'll see if they work well. We'll continue to use those. And there were some conflicting recommendations that will take some more analysis. Fortunately, there's nothing urgent about dealing with those. We have time. We don't have to rush anything, so we'll have time to deal with that. So the first 3 questions really were overlapping. The responses, the recommendations were overlapping with some of the recommendations. Didn't necessarily relate to question 1, but the similar recommendation was related to question 2. So the first 3 questions are kind of grouped together. So those recommendations included, in general, things about social activities, day trips, especially day trips, including some with spouses and guests. That's easy. We'll do that. Service events, projects for veterans. I think one of the issues here is that I think many of us don't realize the breadth and the depth of the volunteering that's going on within our own members, whether or not it's associated directly with the AVVBA. My sense is that this organization basically empowers and encourages people to invest themselves in investing in services for veterans, whether it's known to the rest of the organization or not. In many cases it is, in many cases it's not. And there's some examples I can share with you, but I won't take the time to do that right now. But we will need to communicate better with that so we're aware of that, because it's very inspiring, frankly. Another suggestion that I think is very important and worth considering is to partner or affiliate with other veteran-type organizations. Certainly makes sense to do that. And then potentially to devote some time in the meeting, devote meeting time to learn more about each other. And I want to say now, this is not really so much about war stories as it is about who we are as individuals, both because of our service and after our service. And so that's easier said than done, and it sounds really simple to do. And so the way we're going to go about doing that, if we do that, and I think we will, we're going to make, the team's going to get together and come up with some options and just run it by the board and kind of see how we're going to be able to do that, so we don't distract too much from the value of the meeting that many other people love the speakers. And so to some extent, it's one or the other in certain meetings, so we got to work through that. So basically, the conflicting, that's the questions 1 through 3, where there were common recommendations across all 3 questions. The 4th question, as you may remember, was about whether or not we should include non-Vietnam veterans in our organization. And there needs to be more analysis on that, because there was a mixed bag of conclusions. And this is the wrong presentation, I just realized. This is the one the point is that, though, there's no urgency to make that decision about whether we do that or not. There was about I don't remember the numbers exactly, but about almost half of the participants that made recommendations from the tables thought no or later, and about a third of that number said yes, and then there was a whole bunch that had other suggestions in a way to accomplish the same goal. The reason I want to make this point now is because one of the things that became very clear as a team, and to me in particular, is that I think many of us, including myself, don't really fully appreciate who we are as an organization as well as we could and as well as we really should before we make a big decision like that. Both as an association, the AVVBA Association, which is 501c19 if you're counting, and the foundation, which is a 501c3. And so today, the primary purpose, I think, of the value, the interest of this meeting is to learn more about who we are, who we were, who we became, why we established the foundation, what the foundation actually does. I think it's very important we as an organization understands much more fully and much more deeply what our connection, our legacy is going forward, specifically because of the decision made years ago to establish the foundation as the long-term organization to represent Vietnam veterans in the future, even after we are long gone. So with that, I'm going to introduce Kurt to do his presentation, and then Skip is going to talk about the association, and then I'll come back to wrap it up. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Well, it's good to be here again today. It's been a while since I've been here at the podium, and but I'm currently the board chair for the foundation. I've been a member of this organization for 21 years, and I've been fortunate to have held a number of positions both on the board of the association and the board of the foundation. Go back. You're ahead of me, buddy. Back up, okay? I'll tell you when to change, okay? I have to have these guys. He's an armor guy, and I'm an infantry guy, so follow me. Anyway, in 1987, when we began the memorials to honor Vietnam veterans from the Atlanta area, we collected donations from our own people, from corporations, to help support that project. It wasn't until 20 years later, in 2007, one of our members, who is an IRS agent, uncovered that those donations that we were receiving were not legally could be considered tax deductible because they were coming to the association, which was not a non-charitable association. Next slide. So in 2008, the association board actually created the foundation as a 501c non-charitable organization. The original purpose of the foundation was to be the repository for funds that we collected for the memorial programs going forward and any other initiative we might decide to pursue where we wanted to collect tax-deductible contributions as a non-profit organization. Next slide. Originally, per the first bylaws that were set up, the foundation board was to be made up of just past presidents of the association. It later was expanded, about 9 years later, to include other board of directors of the association because they found out they were limited in the number of people who were able to make commitments to be on the board, foundation board. The original board members were believed to have, why they were presidents and what we considered presidents and directors, because it was felt that these individuals not only had longevity with the organization, but they clearly had a working knowledge of the organization and knew the history of Leilani Vietnam Veterans Business Association and would be in a better position to help support the initiatives the foundation would take on in the future. In the last few years, the board has also added the current president of the association as an ex-official non-voting member. So when that individual eventually moves in the realm of moving up to chairman of the association board, he'd be up to speed on all the current activities the foundation's been involved in, and assuming he would move forward and take a role on the foundation, he would be up to speed on everything that he could start contributing day one as a board of directors of the foundation. Next slide. These will be the foundation board directors starting 2023. I come off actually at the end of this year, and you'll see Ham Henson will actually assume my role as the chairman of the foundation. All the 5 officers who are on here are also directors. The directors who are assuming roles as officers serve a 2-year term beginning at the first of the year, and any individual who is elected to be or nominated to be on the foundation stays there, just like in the Supreme Court, until the day you pass away or you resign or for some reason would need to be removed for unforeseen conditions. Before we completed the last memorial in 2014 for Harry Vaughn in Milton, Georgia, the current association board was really starting to face a real challenge. It was becoming more and more difficult for us to actually develop and put together these memorials because of a number of reasons. Number one, we found out these memorials, there was a very limited number of candidates that existed in the Atlanta area that had any family available at all. Also, for the ones that did have families, it was very difficult to locate those individuals, and the ones we did locate, many of them did not want to have anything else to do. They kind of put that to bed and assumed that they didn't have to relive what they went through in the past. At this time also, around 2014, we found out only about 25 to 30% of all of us in this organization had any interest to support the memorials or even attend the events. In addition to that, corporate interest in supporting our memorials really dwindled. Many of them said it's been 40 years since the war ended. We really don't have much interest, and we're just not there to support that initiative anymore. Tom Yerian, who was the current chairman of the association at that time, sent out a survey to all of us who were members at that time and provided information on these issues that we were facing and indicated that our focus should move away from the memorials and to create a new legacy, something that we could that would sustain all of us going in the future through college scholarship programs with the various colleges in the Atlanta area. He received almost unanimous support for this change. Next slide. In 2012, the AVVBA Foundation Scholarship Program was formed by Brian Tate with a lot of support from his wife. Brian, since that time, has developed an advisory committee consisting of 6 of our members: Max Torrance, Rod Knowles, Joe Bruckner, Alan Gravel, Jim Dixon, and Vince Corca. In addition, he went outside the organization and solicited 4 individuals who are past veterans of some of the previous wars, including Loretta Arrington. If you remember, she was our first recipient of the scholarships we ever gave, Mark Eister, Ted Miller, and Brent Cummings. So he has a cadre of now 10 folks that are helping support him in the scholarship program. Since 2013, he and his team have been able to raise over $215,000 for the scholarship programs. From 2013 to 21, with the support of his team, they've established scholarships with 2 primary universities, that being Perimeter College, is noted up here, and also the University of North Georgia. And since that time, we now have issued, since that time up through 2021, we've issued 11 $1,000 scholarships through those institutions. In 2021, the board, when I became board chairman, we sat down and began to think about what are we need to focus on next? What are going to be the important things that we can do now to move our focus to help create a legacy for this organization? And it was agreed by all members on the board that we would focus on 3 areas. Number 1, we would continue to fund and expand the AVVBA scholarship program. Number 2, we would develop and implement a Memorials Perpetual Care Program that would be a way to maintain those memorials that we've established and make sure they're taken care of going forward from whenever. And thirdly, we would develop and implement a program to promote the truth and factual history of the Vietnam War. Now what I want to do is kind of move to you and talk to you about each of these initiatives and how they play a key role in the legacy of all of us who sit in here today. Next slide. In 2021, Brian and his team developed a relationship with the Georgia State University Foundation for a matching scholarship program to where with GSU, for the GSU Foundation, where we would contribute $100,000 to their foundation, and in turn, they would match it with an additional $100,000, creating a $200,000 endowment. And that was established in 2021. This endowment, starting this year, will produce funds of $8,000 in new scholarship money each year, of which we anticipate of giving 8 $1,000 scholarships going, $8 $1,000 scholarships going forward in perpetuity. Secondly, he's established relationships with Chattahoochee Tech and Gwinnett Technical College Foundations, whereby they now have an interest and want to establish an endowment with us, where we will now contribute $25,000 to each of their foundations, and they in turn will match it with additional $25,000 with each of these colleges for military students. This will now generate an additional 4 scholarships of $1,000 a year. These endowments take about 2 years to actually fully mature, depending on the market conditions, and we expect a 4% return on each of these programs going forward in the future. Combined with all these colleges, are part of our endowment that we have in perpetuity right now is issuing up to 12 AVVBA scholarships to these institutions. In addition to that, and we aren't stopping there because we have more funds available to us. So Brian and his team now are exploring one other institution, which we started with, and that would be the University of North Georgia, the military school, to looking about how we can now establish another scholarship program going forward with them in perpetuity as well, too. Next slide. Tom Yarin, who is, like I say, is on our board, he jumped up to the helm and took on a responsibility to champion our efforts to develop and implement our Memorials I'll get that. Perpetual care program. Actually, his team includes at Ham Henson, Joe Brugner, and John Vale, and they actually have approached the Atlanta History Center about assuming in the future to take over care of our memorials. I want to say thanks, since Sue Verihoff's not here today, I want to tell you, we want to give a big thanks to her because it's her passion for our organization that she's been an internal champion to help support us along with Sheffield Hale. Tom and his team are now moving forward into formal discussions with the association. And as I mentioned up here, there's a number of things that you're involved in. You can read those, but we really are working in collaboration to put together a real effective program where we will eventually transfer ownership of the memorials to them and funds for them to take ownership and maintain the memorials going forward. A couple of things that you may or may not know about why we're able to do this is because of the relationship we've had with the institution. AVVBA was instrumental in helping the Atlanta History Center create the Veterans Park. How many of you knew that? Not that many. Well, now you know. We also have provided leadership in creating their first-class Veteran Day ceremonies at the Atlanta History Park. How many of you knew that? Well, now everybody knows, okay? Thirdly, how many of you knew that we actually helped provide the material and funding for the Vietnam War exhibit that they held a few years ago? How many of you knew that? Not everybody. Now you all know. And lastly, we still to this day provide volunteers to help support their Veteran History Project. Because of all of that, and because of the relationships we've established with them, we feel very comfortably that we'll work out an arrangement with the Atlanta History Center to transfer the care of our memorials to them. All right. Next slide. First of all, I will have to tell you that we're really excited about this next initiative. This is something that we've been working on for a while, and we want to thank Jim Bird Dog Dixon. Jim, Bird Dog, stand up. Where are you, buddy? He'll get up here. Yeah, even a Navy guy. Hey. He's actually took the lead to assume the efforts to help develop our program to help promote the truth and factual history of the Vietnam War. How many of you were around in 2019 when we held the symposium at the Atlanta History Center? Oh, if you weren't there, you missed something. And because of that, Jim has had a passion about continuing to help promote that effort. He and his team are developing a plan to create a 30-minute video entitled The Myths and Truths of the Vietnam War. How many of you recently saw on Fox News the series that was supported and narrated by Brett Baer called The Unauthorized History of the Vietnam War? All right, well, I want to let you know the producer of that and the guy who wrote it is a guy named Andrew Walworth. Jim reached out to him, and actually Andrew gave him great insight and support, and he said, we didn't cover everything in that video, in that series, that needs to be covered, and we're going to give you some advice and some things, and we want to make sure that your team moves forward to create another video that really drills down and deals with some of the significant issues of the Vietnam War. So, with that direction and so on, Jim has personally now put an exceptional amount of work himself and time into this along with his team. He's reached out to a number of nationally known experts of the Vietnam War to be part of this effort, to include the individuals who were involved in our symposium in 2019. He's engaged 2 video production firms to help support us. He and his support resources have actually drafted a screenplay that lays out how the video would go. And he actually just recently contacted Gary Sinise, Lieutenant Dan, for his support and being part of this video program as well. Well, anyway, I want to say those 3 initiatives, scholarship program, memorial care, and the factual history, particularly this movie, are the 3 areas this foundation will continue to focus on to be part of the legacy that we all will be proud of going forward. In the future, we've agreed that we will have a chance to update on each one of these things for you and give you as we move forward, so we'll keep you up to speed on how these things are progressing. I'm allowed, anybody have any questions they'd like to ask at this point before I turn it back over to Skip? No questions? I covered okay? All say aye? I'm done. Thank you.
Thanks, Kurt. This is one of my favorite quotes, by the way. When I was in the infantry advance course at Fort Benning, Georgia, I had a guy in my class named Barry Zase, and Barry Zase was the son of Major General Melvin Zase, who had commanded the 101st Airborne, actually when they were involved in the thing at Hamburger Hill and all that. And of course, having his son as one of our classmates, he came down to Fort Benning and talked to us. And he started out by showing us a slideshow. You know, this is me at LZ Sally, and this is me at Hamburger Hill, and this is me at so-and-so. Well, he's talking to a bunch of infantry captains that had just got back from Vietnam, and they weren't real impressed with the fact that he had choppered in somewhere and choppered out somewhere. And so that was when he said, I know I'm kind of boring you guys with some of this stuff, and maybe I'm blowing my own horn, but if you don't blow your own horn, somebody will use it for a funnel. And I remembered that. I stayed awake long enough in his presentation to remember that. So I'm going to basically talk. I'm going to blow the horn of the AVVBA for a few minutes. I'd like to talk first about what we did during the last year. So here's a whole bunch of gee whiz things. These are the speakers that we had during last year, and some of the, we got a lot of benefits out of that. Those of you that have taken advantage of the Atlanta Opera and Home Depot giving free veterans tickets to that, I did. In fact, I'm going to, they're doing it again this year. I've got tickets for Madama Butterfly this coming Saturday night. So there is, if anybody's interested, let me know. I'll get you the website, and you can, it's a great place to take a date or a spouse or somebody for a really good night out. We had Dr. Jim Krupe come on and talk to us about sort of conditions in the world and what he had been doing to try and, after the debacle when we pulled out of Afghanistan, there were a lot of people, a lot of the special operators and that sort of thing that were working very diligently behind the scenes to get people out of there that had helped us. And there's still a lot of that going on, by the way. We had Arthur Sullivan of the Museum of Aviation that spoke with us. And a number of us went down about a week ago to visit that place. And if you haven't been, it is a really, really first-class museum. It is, everything about it is well done. The staff knows what they're doing. The staff is very professional and friendly at the same time. And it's a great place. If you've got kids and grandkids you want to take down, it's just a good trip. Also, for those of you that haven't been to Buc-ee's yet, there is a Buc-ee's on the way down there too. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll tell you later. Kim Scofie of United Military Care was one of our speakers, and she was the organizer of the We Care Veterans Fair that a lot of y'all helped out with. One of the things that at least that I have found is really good for me, because I've got time, is volunteering to help other veterans. And this was a great opportunity to do that, and it worked out well. We also had Patricia Ross of the Georgia Veterans Service, Georgia Department of Veterans Service speak to us, and she gave a very impressive presentation. Trish is the real deal, by the way. When we were doing the Veterans Care thing up at Cobb County, she and her people were there, and they were there from the time it opened till the time it closed, and she was on her feet the whole time going around trying to help veterans. And so she is a very impressive lady. We also had a guy named Alberto Bolette that spoke to us. He parachuted into the Bay of Pigs, and he spoke to us about that experience, and I thought that was another great presentation. We had Duke Doubleday talk to us about the early days of the AVVBA. We had Tom Burgess speak to us about the AWACS aircraft during Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm. And last but not least, Clyde Romero, our own, has given us a couple of really good short presentations about some stuff, and he's going to talk to us again next month about stuff. He spoke to us about MANPADS, that being a man-portable air defense systems, and also about the Predator drone. Next month, he's going to talk to us about the V-22 Osprey aircraft. Some other stuff that we did. Rich Musegian gave us a couple of piano concerts, and he's going to give us another one in December of Christmas music. And those added both class and some good sounds to our meetings. So thank you, Rich. We appreciate you doing that. And we would... We had the Memorial Day picnic at the History Center picnic area. This is an annual thing for us, and we're going to do it again next year, I hope. So, and a good time was had by all, I believe, at that picnic. We've done field trips to the Cudahy Museum up at Toccoa, and also, of course, last week or week before last to the Museum of Aviation. A few of us assisted the Knights of Columbus with their golf tournament that they do every year at St. Ives to earn money or to raise money for veterans organizations. Last year we got $10,000 out of that, which is not a bad day's work. We have, as John just talked about, we had a survey and table discussions about the future of the organization. You know, I mean, the people that are theoretically in charge, we are servant. At least that's the way I like to think of myself. And as we all get older, we got to figure out where we're going to go with this organization, because there's going to be a time when we're not here. So we really, really appreciate all of you that participated in that, and we are looking hard at the suggestions that were made to do that. We've had several people in our organization that have received individual honors. John Douglas received the American Patriot Award from the Daughters of the Confederacy. Ron Sherman was honored as an esteemed veteran by the city of Roswell. Kerry King was selected as a Braves hometown hero. And John Butler at the We Care Veterans Fair received the Quilt of Valor. So these are all big deals, and it's really kind of neat that these people are members of this organization. So I've got some photographs of some of the stuff that we did. That's from the picnic. This is from the We Care Veterans Fair. And hopefully this thing will work.
I think one of the most therapeutic things that especially a Vietnam veteran can do is to provide something of real value to other veterans. So it's very meaningful as a veteran, and particularly as a Vietnam veteran, to provide some real benefit to other veterans. That's what this is really about.
We're here giving back to the veterans on today, We work out of a barber academy, and we do haircuts, shaves, facials. Well, the guy I just cut, he was 22 years, you know, so to meet somebody like that that's been involved in serving our country is very honorable for me to be able to give him a free service. So we're happy that we're able to help and that they're here.
Commonality, a camaraderie of guys, you know, when we get together at these events, just kind of the joking and the ribbing, the family atmosphere of it. You feel like you're really connected to other veterans who know and understand like what you've been through, what you've experienced, that, you know, only veterans can really understand. Yeah, fly fishing, you know, is great for physical, mental, emotional well-being and health. I know for people that struggle with mental illness and PTSD and those kind of things from the military service, fly fishing is a great outlet for therapy and well-being.
This event has been amazing. There are so many, just to see the community of Cobb County come together. The planner that put this together, I've never seen anything like this before, where so many one-stop source for the veterans, where they can reach out, get a food, shower, haircuts. There's job opportunities and medical. So I think this is just an amazing thing, and I hope to see more in the future.
So the next picture or two are of our members that have received these awards. This is John getting his prestigious American Patriot Award, and of course here's the group that went to cheer Ron Sherman on when he was awarded the esteemed veteran from Roswell. And then this is a couple of pictures from our field trips. The one on the left is the one we just did to the Museum of Aviation, and the one on the right was the last trip that we did up to the Currahee Museum up in Toccoa. Both great, you know, and they're in driving distance, and they're really well done things to see with your family or friend. And hold on, I got one more video.
A big honor today for a College Park veteran of the Vietnam War. Several Vietnam veterans gathered to honor Major Joseph Bishop. Bishop graduated from College Park High School in 1952. He joined the military soon after that. He went on to hold several leadership roles in the armed forces, but he was killed in a helicopter crash in 1968 in Vietnam. This monument was originally located, but it was relocated today to College Park City Hall. Those who organized the event say this monument should remind all who see it that freedom is not free.
It comes at a cost, and when you see a veteran, you know that they've served, worn the cloth of our country, and been part of that effort to make sure that we have the freedoms of the press, freedom of speech, freedom to do the things we want to do.
We thank them for their service. Well, the organizers say recognizing heroes that grew up right here in the metro area is something they want to continue to do for many generations to come. A big honor today.
So, what I'd like to do now for the next minute or two anyway is just to give you the Reader's Digest version of the history of our organization. Some of you, or I guess maybe most of you, were at the 40th anniversary, and I plagiarized that presentation pretty heavy as far as what I've got here. But this is, and my purpose here is to show or to remind us all of what a special organization this is, and how special you are for being a part of it. So we started in 1981. Our image was, we were focused first on enhancing the image of the Vietnam veteran. You may recall back in those days that most of the movies had us as strung out drug users, losers, and so forth, that were hanging around on the sidewalk and not doing much. So we decided, or the people that started the organization decided they wanted to do stuff to show what the real Vietnam veterans were and what we had done with our lives since we came back. So one of the ways that we are enhancing that image is by community service. You know, we work at the USO. We've been working at the USO for a long time. We're still doing that. And again, if anybody wants to volunteer, they need to for this Friday. We helped out at the WeCare Veterans Resource Fair recently. We also, in the past, have participated as mentors in something called the Hire Heroes campaign that the Army did for warrior transition training, and we'll get into that in just a little bit more. We've done 28 memorials, 2 of them twice, throughout the Atlanta area. The ones we did twice were for Warrant Officer McDowell down at the Atlanta airport. We originally had it on the Delta Concourse A, because his dad was the chief pilot for Delta. We had to move it after 9/11, and when people were no longer able to everybody visit anywhere they wanted to go in the airport, we moved it to the main atrium there. And then we just recently moved the memorial for Major Bishop to College Park City Hall. Scholarships for veterans, Kurt talked about that in some detail. This is one way that our legacy is going to go on a long time after we are, because there's an endowed fund out there, and there will be more endowed funds that will provide assistance to our fellow veterans in getting their education after they get out. And of course, we participate in a lot of patriotic activities. We are going to be doing the Atlanta Veterans Day Parade on the 12th of this month. We're doing the Veterans Day celebration at the Atlanta History Center on the 11th. We do all kinds of, we were in the Vietnam War exhibit, and of course the symposium, and we'll be doing more. A number of us go speak about veteran stuff to various groups, and we're still doing that on an ongoing basis. This is a little detail on the memorials. You can read what it says. Basically, 28 memorials for 26 honorees, all throughout the Atlanta metro area, plus up in Cartersville, up in Dahlonega, and down in Jonesboro. And our memorial speakers have included people like Max Cleland, Major General George Patton, Medal of Honor recipients Ray Davis and James Livingston, and Colonel Barney Barnum. Here's some gee whiz stuff from the USO. We have raised over $150,000 for the USO, either through our raffles or there was a group that did parking at the Atlanta airport, or not the Atlanta airport, at the Atlanta, for the Atlanta Braves games back when they were downtown, and we raised about $40,000 doing that. We began our affiliation with the USO in 2005, and we still got it. And then giving credit where credit is due, Max Torrance was a prime mover in that, and he was followed by Bob Babcock. Yeah, I know. It's been a long day. John Vale and Bob Hopkins. And we also, we continue to send 6 to 8 volunteers twice monthly, and we've been doing that for the last 15 years. We did take a break during COVID, but we've started it again. We've raised money for the USO through the raffles. The monthly, we've talked about the $40,000 we raised there. Volunteers went to work at USO facilities in Kuwait and Afghanistan. Larry Taylor, Tom Owens, I guess Bill Stanley is in Florida now, but those 3 guys actually went overseas and worked USO facilities for us, or for the USO a while back. So good for them, and thank you so much. And in 2005, we had 8 volunteers and you can read the list there, deployed to Gulfport to act as USO volunteers during the Katrina recovery. And here's the Veterans Day Parade. We're going to do that again this year. We have done it every year since 1991. We have won several awards. During COVID-19, we did participate in a virtual parade. A lot of y'all went out and we marched by the Vietnam Wall up in Johns Creek and sent that in, and we actually got an award for that video as well. And of course, we have worked hand in glove with the Atlanta History Center all these years, and we continue to do that. These are some of the other activities that we have had over the years. We used to go down to Fort Benning for they'd have that hot shoot down there. We get to go out and shoot sniper rifles and stuff like that. They had to quit that because the money ran out, I think. And we'd go to Ranger graduations while we were down there too, which was kind of neat. And of course, we've done field trips to the Currahue Museum, to Kings Bay, to the Charleston, South Carolina, to the base there, the Aviation Museum, and to Washington, D.C. Rucker. I forgot. Fort Rucker. How can I forget Fort Rucker? And to Huntsville, Alabama. Yep. Okay. I'll give you some push-ups later. Sir? Space Museum at Huntsville. Okay, thank you. We assisted with the setup and display of the moving wall that heals, which is now located up in Johns Creek. And oh, by the way, Willow Construction and Alan Gravel did a whole lot to make that wall happen up there. They did all the landscaping and it would not have happened without Alan, so thank you so much. And of course, we participated in the 50th anniversary commemoration at the state capitol of the Vietnam War. So, as my friend Larry Seals used to say, that is my story and I'm sticking to it. John, do you have anything else?
Thank you. I just want to make one quick comment to wrap up, and that is when Don Plunkett stopped me in the parking lot of the office that he had a building behind us and invited me to come to this meeting, my first reaction was I don't want to sit around and drink beer and complain about how we were treated when I went to Vietnam. And obviously that's not this. And I don't know how many, if there are any other organizations anywhere that really do what we do. And I hope you appreciate, I hope you heard today that we selfishly are served by serving veterans. Our therapy, our value, our sense of well-being, all of that is impacted positively, not only by the groups, the day trips we make and those kind of things, because we get to hang out with each other, but we are consistently and intentionally serving veterans, and today and forever. And that's really what is the nut, the essence of this organization. I hope you appreciate that. I appreciate the opportunity to share this with you, and I will officially close the business meeting and turn it back over to Skip. This was a very strange transition, wasn't it? Yes, sir. Cool, yeah. And you know, it's a very good point. I didn't know that. And what I said earlier, I'll touch on again, there are many of you who behind the scenes do significant service for veterans, and we don't know about it. And we don't need to take credit for it, but we also want, though, to encourage each other by knowing about that. So we really appreciate the horn analogy. We want to know about the things you do because we can all take some pride in that. So that's all I have. Thank you all.
Yeah, and one other individual honor that I neglected was Jim Crawford received the FAA's 50-year Safe Flying Award this year, and that's really quite special, actually. So, yeah.